Hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 44th FESIG meeting. Today is the 4th of October. It's a Wednesday, and we are starting promptly. It's Patrick's turn to come back to speak because he had other devices that he couldn't finish talking about in the last meeting. So let's go. I have to mute somebody because there's noise coming up. If you're not talking it, please mute yourself. All right. Okay, I'm going to hit share screen now, and I'm going to start sharing screen. Welcome to FESIG again, the Free Energy Special Interest Group. Right, we have our logo here that you could see. Okay, this is the 44th meeting, as I mentioned earlier, and I am Crystal Gore. I'm the chair, and we have our co-chair here with us, Dr. Fresfrezel. Okay, so the Free Energy Special Interest Group's website is truevisionofpeace.com/FESIG, FESIG.html, and it is about, of course, developing free energy. FESIG meetings offer a platform for free energy technologists, developers, scientists to present their work and teachings with creative, innovative, varying ideas and theories, experimentations with different beneficial results. FESIG's policy as open-minded futurist freedom seekers group is open to all teachings, welcoming creativity that pushes science and spirituality to the furthest frontiers in the pursuit of knowledge, seeking breakthroughs to succeed in our objectives of making this world a better place to live in. So that is a very brief, short introduction of FESIG for those of you who are new to what FESIG is all about. Now, today's meeting, the 44th FESIG meeting's agenda is number one, a quick presentation on FESIG, which I've just done, and we had just gotten to know a new member here with us, our brother, Awind Binders, and then we have done that. That is item number 2 in the agenda, and item number 3, I'm the chair and Tress is a co-chair, and we have our speaker back with us, our kingpin of free energy education, Patrick J. Kelly of the Practical Guide to Free Energy Devices. He will be continuing from where he left off in the 42nd FESIG meeting. And if you want to know more about Patrick and his book and his manual on free energy devices, go to our website. Okay, let me show you where our website is. Hang on a minute. Let me show you. Okay, now this is our website, the FESIG website. Okay, if you scroll down, you will see the introduction to Patrick, and you have our, links here from our website to his work. And he's got the free energy reference manual here as well, that he written reference information that you could click on and study it well, so you'll be able to have all the information that you need, because he's very meticulous in putting all this together to help us along with our research. He not only put things together, he also illustrated them, and he's painstakingly put together this compendium of free energy devices, and it's more than 3,300 pages altogether, and he updates it regularly with his own personal comments on viability. So this has actually become the reference manual for free energy enthusiasts. So if you scroll down the website, you'll be able to see the reports of our meeting and our future meetings as well. And the next meeting, we'll have Dr. Elizabeth Donovan speaking about the topic that is mentioned in the, well, she'll be talking about politics and energy, implementation of alternative energy technologies. So it's all there in the website. And if you scroll down a little bit further, you'll be able to see the reports of the last meetings, the 43rd meeting where Mark McCandlish has really given us a very good insight into the flux liner, the so-called the alien reproduction vehicle. So you'll be able to have a very good insight deep into these things that we would never have ever got the opportunity to come across unless whistleblowers like Mark would come out to tell us and show us in so many illustrations. He happens to be an artist and illustrator, and he gets to go into places where nobody gets to, because he has to see it by himself with his own eyes in order to illustrate those vehicles, the spaceships, and well, those secret space program stuffs that they do, which is so advanced. And then if you scroll down further, you'll be able to see the executive council core team members here who are listed here. And then you will be able to get to see the details for every meeting that we've got, the Zoom code that you could come in every now and again to join us. And then when you scroll down further, you will see, you will see the recordings of the meetings, okay? The 43rd meeting, 42nd meeting, 41st meeting. Just click on them. Or you could just click on our channel, our YouTube channel here. You just click there, and it brings you to our YouTube channel, where you will not miss a single meeting that has been recorded. Thus far, we have got 43 recorded meetings thus far. This will be our 44th one, right? So that's what I have to say about this. Okay. Now, of course, Patrick has spoken on the 42nd meeting, where he showed the Dennis Sabourin generator, commenting on how the inventor assembled the device and how it works. As with the other devices, followed by Mr. Wilson of Texas, who made a self-powered wooden flywheel generator for the car. Then the Terao Kawai's electric motor, a ring of magnets, and the Alexco aerial system, the Joe Cell technology, the Elmer Grimes 1961 patented design for large-scale extraction of water from the air, the Chess Campbell generator, the homopolar or N machine of Michael Faraday, amongst many others that Patrick had presented. And today he will be continuing with some of the most amazing devices. I had a glimpse of it. It's really amazing. Thank you, Patrick, for doing all that work for us. And once Patrick is finished, we got the Q&A, and then we got the members of the floor joining into the conversation. And when Patrick's on to his presentation, Dr. Fresfres will be taking over the co-chair. And then once we finish, then we adjourn to the next. We will go around the table, and then we adjourn to the next meeting, which is our 45th FESIG meeting on the 18th of October, where Dr. Elizabeth Donovan presents Politics and Energy, Implementation of Alternative Energy Technologies. So that's it, folks. I'm going to stop sharing now and pass the talking stick to our co-chair. Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, our co-chair. Would you bring Patrick forth? Thank you.
I would love to, Crystal. Patrick Kelly, this is basically the second part of his talk. And for those of us that have been working in the industry, actually trying to duplicate some of these devices, and a lot of them we haven't been very successful with. And the beauty of what Patrick has been talking about is the connection between the different devices, how they were developed, and some of the things that were basically overlooked in the diagrams, that we had picked up from on the web and from other sources. And so by logically going from step to step from one device to the other, Patrick has been able to illuminate the ideas, where we've missed in getting the reproduction of these devices working. So I really want to thank you, Patrick, for what you've done so far with FESIG. And I'm going to turn the floor over to you, because you've got a lot of information. We don't have that much time. So take it away, Patrick.
Thank you very much. Can you see my screen at this stage?
We see you.
We see you.
Okay. Well, I've tried sharing the screen, but I don't seem to get any response from it at the moment.
There, it's starting to start.
Okay. Can you see it now?
We see the fishes. Yes, we do.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
All right. That's fine. Is there any way of getting rid of the stuff on the right here with the pictures of various people? No?
Yes,
that would
it
be
is.
in your.
It
Just
is.
pull it down to the bottom. Just pull it down.
There is a few buttons on those Windowses of each person, and one of them, if you clicked, it will be rectangular one. At the very top or bottom of those images, it will make just as a one picture only.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Is it working?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Thank
you. All right. To continue on then with what we're discussing, I'd like to present a fact that misses a lot of people. Most people today are not aware of the fact that we live in a single, massive, inexhaustible energy field. This is supposed to be a joke, though I don't personally think that it is amusing at all. The joke is that there are two little fish swimming along, and a large fish passes by them and remarks, "The water is lovely today, isn't it?" And then when the large fish has gone by, one of the small fish asks the other, "What's water?" Now that's supposed to be funny because the fish asking the question is completely immersed in the water and couldn't survive without it. The humor disappears immediately when you realize that most people are in the same position, and they would ask, "What is the universal energy field?" even though they're immersed in it and they couldn't survive without it. Because of this severe lack of knowledge, we miss out every day of our lives because we don't accept what's been offered to us as a free gift. For example, we can grow fruit and vegetables, but without expending any major effort, we could easily have much greater results with 6 crops per year and each crop being 4 times larger. How? With a large greenhouse like this. This structure was built in Canada by Les Brown, and it produced food for him continuously in spite of the bitter Canadian winters. The structure is a pyramid. He has a 2nd floor at that level and a 3rd floor higher up. And the effect of the pyramid spills outside it as well, and plants that are planted just outside it also benefit from the power that's produced by the pyramid. Les Brown experimented extensively with pyramids and related devices, and it should be stressed at this point that various facts have been observed at this time, but the effects caused by a pyramid is not fully understood, and no laws as such have been deduced. We have to work on the basis of, this is what was done, and these are the results. And because of this, the following extract from the work of the late Les Brown is reproduced here, and you must decide for yourself if what he says is true and whether or not it might be worth your while trying out some of what he says. He says, in conducting pyramid experiments, you should look daily for signs of change and note them meticulously, and above all, be patient. Don't plant a seed one day and expect to have a plant 6 feet tall the very next day. A plant takes just as long to develop inside a pyramid as it does outside the pyramid. But in time, you will see the tremendous difference in size. Also, don't keep moving plants around inside your pyramid during an experiment. Leave pots stationary so that you can see what the results are. You can make your own pyramids. They can be constructed entirely from inexpensive materials, cardboard, wire, plywood, or anything rigid enough to retain the pyramid shape will do. The pyramid does not necessarily have to be solid. In experiments, just the outline shape is sufficient, provided the outline shape is joined at all corners and at the apex. Remember that with all types of pyramid, positioning is all important. One of the square base sides must point towards magnetic north. Use a compass to determine the direction of magnetic north, and then align the pyramid with that. He remarks that several pyramids correctly orientated and stacked on top of one another will produce increased energy, cell activity, and growth. He says, using pyramids, I sincerely believe that I can grow 36 times more and better plants in a given area than any farmer or market gardener can in the same area using conventional methods. When all four sides are put together, you must have a pyramid which is leaning in at 51 degrees, 51 minutes, 14 seconds. If you grow a plant inside a pyramid, it absorbs energy at a high intensity, and so the result is enormous growth. When this is applied to vegetables and fruit, the plants, as well as their products, are immensely oversized. My own experiments have convinced me that this energy creates a special reaction in the living cells of plants, resulting in larger blooms, larger leaves, and larger fruits on whatever plants are propagated in the pyramid. The normal life cycle of lettuce, for instance, from seed to maturity, is 6 to 8 weeks. Grown under a pyramid, the life cycle is still the same, but the plant is considerably larger. If you allow the vine type of tomato to mature to 6 or 7 trusses under a pyramid, while simultaneously growing an identical plant to do the same outside the pyramid, giving both of the plants the same feeding, the same watering, a startling difference in yield occurs. I should mention that if you put your outside plant too near the pyramid, it will reach for and receive some of the pyramid's energy. So keep it well away if you want to get a fair comparison. The outside tomatoes would weigh out at approximately 10 to 14 pounds per plant, while the plant grown inside the pyramid would produce between 50 and 60 pounds of tomatoes. Not every type of plant grown under a pyramid will produce this increase. This is the average which I've come to expect from tomatoes. A few more averages which I've obtained repeatedly were lettuce, 2 to 3 times larger than average, beans, 25 inches long by 1 1/4 inches wide, cabbage, when controls outside were 3 pounds each, the pyramid-grown plants were 12 to 13 pounds per head. Radishes that normally would be the size of a quarter were 4 inches in diameter. Controlled cucumbers that averaged 14 inches in length and weighed up to 1 pound each, they were 21 inches long and weighed up to 4 pounds each when grown in a pyramid. Energized air in the pyramid also appears to repel small insects, so there's no need to use pesticides within its glass walls. Pest-free plants grow to maturity inside, with none of the setbacks that plants subject to normal attack from pests suffer in the garden outside. This also means that pyramid-grown vegetables need no washing upon harvesting. The mere appearance of such plants is more appetizing than that of those grown normally. Greens are more vivid, and many leaves have a sheen which is noticeably absent from plants grown in kitchen gardens. An egg broken out of its shell and left inside a pyramid will gradually congeal and become like plastic, as the pyramid energy works harmlessly on its cells. The cells do not die or spoil. After a period of weeks or months, these congealed eggs can be reconstituted in water to the point where they can be eaten with complete safety, and they taste even more delicious than eggs prepared in the usual way. One peculiar phenomenon which I've observed under my large pyramid is the formation of dew on plants inside it. This happens early in the morning. During all my years of experiences with greenhouses, I never noticed dew forming on any plants in conventional greenhouses. This dew dissipates gently as the sun grows stronger, exactly as it would outside. Also, after a recent thunderstorm, my pyramid cucumbers grew 2 to 2.5 inches in a matter of hours. I built a pyramid purely for research purposes. For large-scale production, a pyramid which is much larger in size would be needed. When building the prototype, I encountered and overcame virtually all the problems that one can expect to meet in a construction of this type. Building a pyramid is nothing like building a house, and while a slight difference in measurement can be overcome when building a house, it's not possible to make a mistake in a pyramid and just carry on building. The particular piece containing the error must be pulled out and replaced correctly, as any mistake is transferred all the way around the pyramid. My test pyramid is 30 feet high at the peak. Its sides from base corner to peak measure 44 feet, 4.5 inches, with a base edge length of 46 feet, 10.5 inches. It contains 2 additional floors above the ground level, and the sum of the areas of these 2 floors is equal to or greater than that of the ground floor. Thus, the 2 additional floors virtually doubles the growing area. My first floor is 12 feet above the ground, and there's a reason for this. I calculated that when the sun was at its highest point, the first floor would have to be 12 feet high to allow the sun to shine on to the back, northern edge of the ground floor. The 12-foot height was perfect, but not absolutely necessary, as there are as many plants that grow well in shade as there are plants that prefer the sun. In future, my pyramid floors will all be 8 feet apart, and I will put my sun-loving plants in the southern half and my shade-loving plants in the back northern half. By placing the floors at 8-foot intervals, there's a much more growing area. With floors inside a pyramid, the higher up the floor, the higher the temperature there. For example, if the ground floor is at 75 degrees Fahrenheit, then the second floor would be 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and the third floor would be about 105 to 115 degrees Fahrenheit. And each of the higher floors will also have a higher humidity. The ground floor is perfect for such crops as radishes, lettuce, carrots, beets, tomatoes, and so on. The second floor is ideal for cucumbers, squash, peppers, and plants which like it hotter and more humid than the ground floor. The top floor can be used for lemons, oranges, figs, and especially orchids. Now, I should remark that he lived in Canada, and Canada is not the warmest, sunniest place in the world. But anyway, he says the pyramid draws in its own water on the ground floor. I have never had to water that level, which is built directly on the ground. It never draws too much or too little water, always just the right amount for growth. Naturally, I have to pump water to the upper floors, but because the ground floor provides its own water supply, at least half of my pyramid is watered automatically for no cost. I grow right in the ground on which the pyramid stands, but upstairs I've placed wooden planting troughs all around the floors, leaving room to walk, and I grow plants in these. It's a major job getting the soil up to the upper floors initially, but it's only a one-time task. The troughs that I use are 14 inches wide, 16 inches deep, and have a bottom. Space in the pyramid is used to the utmost. At the perimeter of the low areas, I plant the kind of plants that need very little headroom, and then I plant the bigger crops towards the middle. This is a matter of common sense, but using vine-type tomatoes and stringing them up, one can work better between the rows, and if the lower leaves are removed, there's sufficient space to grow lettuce, cabbage, or any low-lying crop in between the tomato plants. The trusses may be left on the tomatoes, as they will not shade the low-lying plants. To ensure a steady supply of food, it's wise to plant only a few plants of each variety at intervals, which means that in the beginning, it will take several weeks to reap a full harvest, but after that, there will be a continuous yield. By planting in such a manner, the grower will reap about 6 full crops each year, and this method applies only to an enclosed pyramid, which would also need heating in the winter. The means of heating is up to the individual. Personally, I use a wood-burning stove because I have my own supply of wood. However, a wood and oil combination is best because it allows one to be away for a couple of days when necessary. And if the wood fire gets low, then the oil burner takes over. In addition to food growth, the pyramid also has application in food preservation. I've read statistics which state that 40% of all food grown in my home country of Canada is lost to spoilage, whether at the place of storage, in transport, in wholesale or retail, or finally in the home. Regardless of how this spoilage occurs, the state of affairs can be remedied. The energy of the pyramid, which grows plants so amazingly well, can also be used for the mummification of food, which can be dehydrated and kept in storage for an indefinite period without losing any of its taste or nutritional properties. There are absolutely no ill effects on any food stored in a pyramid. In fact, in many instances, it is far better when reconstituted than it was in the first place. It has the water taken out of it, but it also repels bacteria, and as a result, nothing will rot in a pyramid. For instance, I cannot make a compost heap inside my pyramid. I have to do it outside. Otherwise, the ingredients in the compost heap all remain in good shape and will not break down. The grain grown in Manitoba today is a direct descendant of the grain found in the Great Pyramid, grain that had been there for centuries and had kept perfectly. My pyramid is made from rough sawn timber, that is, not planed all over. Timber cut on and near my property and milled by a neighbour. But it's not necessary for pyramids to be made of wood. They can be made of any rigid material which will support permanent glazing. Cardboard, strong wire, sheet steel or metal, angle arms, logs, anything which will not curve and which can be measured precisely and fitted. Pyramids do not have to have solid faces. For many uses, open-sided shapes will do, so long as all the corners are joined and the angles are correct. My present pyramid is made of timber and covered with heavy-gauge plastic sheet. Future ones will be sheathed in fiberglass, acrylic, or glass. They will be closed pyramids solely because I propose to grow food during the depths of Canada's frigid winters. My pyramid frame is built mainly of wood, measuring 2 inches by 4 inches and 2 inches by 8 inches rough sawn. Pyramids can be built any size as long as their proportions are correct. Now, he doesn't say it, but I should mention that if you make a small pyramid, which is the right shape and size and orientation, you need to keep it away from strong electromagnetic fields. So you do not place a small pyramid on top of a refrigerator or near a television set. Now, there's a video of Les Brown lecturing on the web, and it's at this particular address here. You can take a watch on that, and it's a good thing to see. It's a good presentation. Now, you may wonder why I'm talking about this, but a pyramid causes the universal energy field to flow up the edges and through the structure, and the effect spills out to plants around the base as well. It has enormously beneficial effects on plants, animals, and humans. Now, something that should be mentioned about this is that you have a great facility there for utilizing this great energy field. The energy field can be called orgone. It's the field that Mr. Kesh has been developing devices to access. It's relatively tricky, but one of the easiest ways of dealing with it is with a pyramid. And you can actually get electrical energy from it if you're very determined, as has been done and shown how on the web. But anyway, that's one way to access this universal energy field. And this talk is about the universal energy field and how to access it. There are more than 20 ways to access it. Another way is to use a coil of wire. Batteries are charged by applying a high enough voltage to them, but the rate of charge is not constant. In the first split second, the very light electrons from the charging source spiral down the outside of the collecting wire at the speed of light. They actually travel about 6 inches a second, actually through the wire itself. But the real transmission of electrical power is on the surface of the wire around the outside, if it's electrical energy we're talking about. If it's not, then it operates somewhat differently. But anyway, when the electrons reach the battery which is being charged, there's a problem. And that's the fact that the charging current inside the battery is carried by much heavier ions. Heavier ions do not move at the speed of light. A tiny fraction of a second after switching on, the electrons reach the bottleneck of the heavy battery ions, and so they pile up in a great plethora of electrons. Now that has the effect of applying a much higher voltage to the actual battery, and energy is drawn in from the environment to supply the current that flows into the battery in that first fraction of a second. Now, the effect only lasts for a very short fraction of a second. And if you're using an ordinary DC charging source like you get with a mains power supply with a capacitor, which produces typically something like 14 or 15 volts and applied to a 12-volt battery, that super fast charging only occurs once in the entire charging session. But if we choose, we can arrange our charging circuit to do this switch-on style of charging thousands or hundreds of thousands of times each second. This is a particularly good circuit for something like that. It's very simple. It's shared freely by a Russian guy called Alex Kor, and it operates with just one transistor, one small resistor, one small capacitor, 100 turns of 0.5 millimeter diameter wire. Neon's not part of the circuit, but is there to protect the transistor. Its unbright spark actually disconnects all the batteries, because the batteries, which add up to 48 volts roughly, keep the voltage that's on the collector of the transistor from going up above 48 or 50 volts, which is fine for a transistor like this. There's a more powerful version of the circuit with a much more expensive transistor, which doesn't need a neon. But anyway, moving on from that, that's charging a battery with a coil, pulling in energy from the universal energy field. The universal energy field is sometimes called the ether, or the zero-point energy field. But there is a room temperature superconductor of the universal energy field. We call it a permanent magnet. Every permanent magnet directs a continuous stream of energy through it, although not as shown in schools, where the field is distorted by hundreds of tiny iron filings, which themselves act as tiny magnets during the school demonstration. An iron filing, or any piece of iron, is 1,000 times easier for energy to pass through than open air is. So when a school teacher scatters iron filings on a piece of paper and holds it over a magnet, what you see is not the result of the field coming from the magnet itself. The magnet, if it's rectangular, has a field that rotates around each of the four corners, and not as it's shown as joining up from one corner to the other corner. It doesn't go like that. Anyway, there have been people opposing the introduction of free energy for more than 100 years now. And they tell us magnets have power, but they can't perform work. Now that statement is as silly a statement as can be, because magnets do not have power. Instead, they channel the university energy field through them, and they most certainly can do useful work. Take the permanent magnet motor of Charles Flynn as an example. The very impressive permanent magnet motor of Charles Flynn is shown in patent US 5455474 of October 1995. The patent states that the motor produces a substantial amount of output energy and torque. Because it has a battery, you might mistake it for a motor which is powered by electricity, but it's most definitely not. It is a motor whose power comes from permanent magnets, and there is electromagnetic screening driven by a 9-volt dry battery. With that dry battery, the motor reaches 20,000 revs per minute. The basic design is based on this arrangement here. Now, this arrangement is very simple. There is at the bottom here, marked in blue and yellow, a circular ring magnet, permanent magnet. The South Pole is shown in yellow, the North Pole is shown in blue. The line in between is what's called the block wall, where the two poles of the magnet separate. Above that, there is a rotor. The rotor is made of non-magnetic materials, and it has its North Pole facing the South Pole of the stator magnet, which is mounted on this plate across here, which is described as being the upper plate. Beneath that, you have two things. First of all, you have a bearing. I'm not too sure if that's a single or a double bearing, but normally let's say it's a single bearing. That bearing supports this rotating rod, which is both timing and output power shaft. Now that shaft is attached to a circular disc here. It's a rotating slotted optical disc, and light is formed from the light emitting diodes here, and if there is a gap in this disc here, the light shines through to activate the sensor below it. The sensor below it is either a phototransistor or a light sensitive resistor. Either will do. An ORP12 light dependent resistor would be excellent. Phototransistors have the ability to amplify. It's rings and swings and roundabouts. They both would be very good. But let me explain this now in more detail. The bearing on the shaft supports the rotor itself here, and that maintains the gap between the stator magnet and the rotor. On top of the stator magnet are a number of coils. Now the thing is, if the coils are not powered up at all, you have the normal situation where the South Pole of the rotor magnet is attracted to the North Pole of the stator magnet. As the coil is off, it has no effect at all, and there's no inclination for the rotor to rotate in any direction. There's a pull in this direction and an equal pull in that direction. So there's no reason for the rotor to rotate. So our challenge is, therefore, to produce a powerful rotational movement from this arrangement. These are the working parts. You've got the circular stator magnet. The shaft, output shaft, passes up through the magnet, and the rotor is clamped onto it. There are 7 coils here and 2 rotor magnets. The rotor magnets are exactly opposite each other. Now that means that if this magnet, for instance, is exactly above one coil here, the magnet on the far side will be exactly halfway between two other coils. Now that's a clever arrangement which makes this motor self-starting. Now the arrangement there is we can now create a movement on this. We take the magnet that is between two coils and we power up one of them. Because we're powering up one of them here, we only power it up slightly, just enough to oppose the backward drag that the stator magnet has on the rotor magnet. That leaves an unbalanced force to the right here. Because coil 34 is off, there is no effect, and this gets pulled towards the stator magnet in this direction. Now the thing is, the other rotor magnet is above a coil, but it's off as well. So there's only this one coil creating an effect. And that effect causes the rotor to move, in this case, to the right. And it moves to the right, and then it stops. But we don't want it to stop. So we switch on coil 34 here, and that keeps the rotor moving around one step further. Now, strictly speaking, it's actually the magnet around the far side that's moved across between two that we use to switch the coil on, but that's just nitpicking. The effect is essentially the same. The rotor moves across because this one's on, and when it reaches a stage where it's going to slow down and stop, you switch this one on because the rotor's now passed by to there, and that keeps the rotation going. This is a very effective way of doing it. How do you switch the coils on and off? Because of this timing arrangement here. The optical timing disc has got two slots. The two slots are positioned exactly underneath the two rotor magnets. And the lighting LED disc and the phototransistor disc are aligned with each other, and they are each side of this optical timing disc. This is a very effective way of organizing the timing. And you'll notice that this rotor has only one moving part. The optical disc is attached to the rotor, and it switches on the rotor, masking coils at the appropriate moment. Now, it's very effective, but remember that the turning power comes solely from the universal energy field flowing through these permanent magnets. Now, obviously, the next step in development of this motor is to add another stator ring magnet and coils above the rotor in this fashion here. Now, you'll notice that the direction of the north and south poles is the same no matter which side of the rotor it is, because the pole on the rotor, magnetic pole, is the reverse of what it is on the underside of the rotor magnet. Now, this is a very better, much better and much more balanced drive on the rotor. You now switch on two coils that are exactly above each other. You switch them on together. That blocks off the backward drag on the rotor magnet caused by the stator magnets. But there is a forward pull on this side, and there's a forward pull on this side. Like on a catapult, this gives a balanced drive to the right. This setup, of course, can be replicated as many times as you want, and the motor power will increase by a major degree with every added section. So one of these arrangements here forms a drive section, and you can have as many drive sections as you want. There isn't any limit on this. You can build this up to be as powerful as you want. Now, Charles suggests this circuit for switching the power on and off to the coils. He uses a small 9-volt battery. He feeds a little current through a resistor to power an LED, light emitting diode. When the timing disc slot comes across to be between the light-emitting diode and the optical device, be it a transistor or an optical resistor. That makes the resistance across this unit drop enormously, especially relative to the resistance of this R2. That pulls the voltage on this grid here up high. The grid of the field effect transistor here alters the resistance between the source and drain connections of the FET, effectively turning it on. So when the slot is opposite the LED, the FET switches on and powers up the coil that's connected through it to the battery. This is what the N-channel FET is going to look like when you physically see one in your hand. Now there are 7 of these circuits. There's 1 for each coil. I'm only showing 2 here because showing more is just confusing, and it's easier to show just 2 and talk about 2. You notice that the feeding resistor feeds all of the light emitting diodes in all 7 circuits, and the optical disc, which I haven't shown, passes at different times between the different LEDs and the opto devices. The transistors switch on and they power up the appropriate coil to the battery in each instance. It's a very neat way of dealing with it, and as you're going to be switching more than 1 coil at a time, you can wire all the coils together so that you have 8 coils connected and you have 7 sets of those 8 coils. And that gives you a very powerful motor. And remember, this motor is driven by magnet power alone. Well, strictly speaking, it's powered by permanent magnets, and the magnets themselves have no power. They channel the universal energy field through them. And it's that universal energy field that provides a very powerful drive to a motor which is only one moving part. I keep getting asked what diameter wire and how many turns for each coil. There's no answer to that. I can't answer that question. No one can. The magnetic effect of a coil is not related to the power fed into the coil. And a coil with many turns of fine wire, drawing very little current, can easily have a stronger magnetic field than a coil with fewer turns of thicker wire and much higher current draw. Although those 2 coils will have very different response times, back EMF pulses and so on. Also, magnets vary a great deal in their strength, and there's no way that I can know how powerful your magnets are. And finally, the gap between the rotor and the magnets, the rotor and stator magnets, makes a major difference. So I suggest that you construct the basic first step of this with 1 circular stator magnet and 1 rotor with 2 magnets in it. Now, what you do is you choose the gap between the rotor and the stator. Then you choose a wire diameter, and you wind a coil with the number of turns that you choose and see what effect it has. Try different coils to see what works really well with your particular magnets. And when you find one that's good, you use it everywhere. But you only have to wind 1 coil to do this test. Just 1 coil is enough to see how well the rotor moves across. Now let's move on again to another permanent magnet motor. This is one made and designed by Robert Adams. Now let me explain this very carefully before we launch into it. This particular magnet motor has got a very considerable performance. Now, I want you to be very clear on this. This was replicated by one person who built the generator from the design description. And the person who built this had a 33 kilowatt power output from it. I presume the version he built was slightly bigger. But the input power that he was using was 27.6 watts. And he had 33.78 kilowatts coming out of it. That's a coefficient of performance of 1,223, or if you prefer it in percentages, it's 122,300% performance. Now that is spectacular. So that is what I'm about to talk about here. Again, let me remind you that what I'm talking about is the universal energy field. This is the field which powers the growth inside a pyramid. It's the energy field which Mr. Kesh has got so much from with his various more recent designs of how to access it. This is the energy which powers battery chargers. It can run cars. It can do lots of things. It's a very potent energy field which adjusts itself to the needs of the user, including you as a person. Right. When Robert Adams was 70 years old, he designed this motor. He lived in New Zealand. This is a very effective motor generator. He was told to destroy his device or he would be killed. Now he decided that at his age he'd very little to lose, and so he published his design. His motor overcomes the Lenz's law drag effect, and through clever engineering achieves a power output which is typically 8 times greater than the input power. And although it does not look as if it is, his design is actually a permanent magnet motor. The diagram of his motor, which is supposed to show how it works, is this. Now that, because of the coils and the fact that power is connected, makes it look as if electrical pulses drive this motor. This is not the effect. It makes it look like one of John Bedini's famous motors that drives the rotor with pulses, electrical pulses. It isn't. This is a permanent magnet motor, and the rotation of the rotor is caused primarily by the magnets in the rotor being attracted to the solid iron cores of the 2 so-called drive electromagnets shown in the diagram. The electromagnets confuse people because they don't realize that the level of power applied to them is so low that it only just cancels the backward drag of the magnets as soon as they pass the electromagnet cores. That happens 4 times per rotation, and the power is only switched on when the rotor magnet is exactly aligned with the electromagnet, and then very only briefly. These 2 electromagnets, along with their very carefully timed electric pulses, are the entire drive for the generator. The timing of the so-called drive coil pulses is arranged again this time by an optical timing disc. The version in this particular implementation, which was done by Ron Pugh in Canada, is a metal disc or a fiber disc which has got slots cut in the outer edge, and those slots pass through a commercial sensor. The commercial sensor has an ultraviolet transmitter LED on one side and an ultraviolet sensitive resistor in the other side. And the timing disc is mounted to the rotor axle, and on the other side there is a timing disc to deal with the pickup coils, which I haven't mentioned yet. But let's concentrate on the drive for the moment. After much experimentation, Robert found that the most efficient arrangement is when the cores of the so-called drive electromagnets have half the cross-sectional area of the rotor magnets. So if the rotor magnet happened to be circular in cross-section, which is unusual, then their diameter would be twice that of the circular drive electromagnet cores. Robert also found that the best gap between the rotor magnets and the drive electromagnets is about 1/2 inch or 12 millimeters. A further tweak to the drive system is the fact that the drive electromagnets are fed a continuous stream of electric pulses. When a coil is powered up and then the current switched off, the coil generates a reverse voltage pulse, sometimes called the back EMF pulse, which really annoys a lot of electronics purists but I'm going to talk about it as being the back EMF pulse, because I'm not a purist. Now, in Robert's motor generator, those back EMF pulses are used twice. First, as the coils were energized in order to oppose the attraction between the rotor magnets and the electromagnet cores, the back EMF being in the opposite direction causes the reverse effect, increasing the attraction to the next approaching rotor magnet. Secondly, Robert rectifies the back EMF pulses and feeds them back to the drive battery, and doing that recovers 95% of the current needed to make the generator work. It's paying attention to details like that that make an enormous difference between the people who succeed in building an excellent generator and the people who try it and say, oh, it doesn't work. Well, it doesn't work if you build it wrong. That's true. Now we come to the power generating system. And like I say, one person who replicated this device has an excess output of 33 kilowatts of power, and that powers his house and his business. The power generation is through 4 additional rectangular electromagnets. They act as pickup coils, and this drawing was actually done by Robert himself. Now notice a number of things about this. First of all, the generator coils have a core that is approximately twice the size of the core in the so-called drive electromagnets. If you notice it, the core is big, and it actually projects out of the back end of the coil, because there's not a lot of point in having a coil which is longer than the magnetic effect caused by the magnet passing by. If the magnet passing by only goes as far as here before the field dies out, then there's no point in having the coil 3 times as long. It can work, but it's not nearly as effective as keeping it short. Notice too that the coils themselves, the 4 output coils, are attached to either an adjustable disc or a ring, whichever you prefer. That allows the coil positions to be moved while the generator is actually running. Now, you notice also, of course, that the support for the drive coils is separate. This, again, like I say, is a drawing done by Robert. Now, you also need to notice that the length of the coils on the rotor themselves, they're long and narrow, which puts the north pole of the magnet a long way from the south pole. The south poles are all clustered together in near the axle of the rotor. The north poles are facing outwards. North poles are slightly more effective than south poles in an arrangement like this. There's not much in it, but there is something in it. Now, the most important single point on this is the fact that the output energy, the output current, the output power is cut off at the appropriate moment. Cutting off the output power sounds all wrong to most people, and yet it's a very, very important thing to do. The reason is the same as for the drive coils. If you don't cut off the electrical connection, then the attraction between the solid iron cores of the generator coils and the rotor magnets tries to pull rotor magnets back towards the fixed generator coil cores. That's an effect called drag, or sometimes called cogging. But if the output current generated in the coils by the passing magnets is cut off at just the right instant, then the back EMF generated by that cutoff causes a magnetic field in the generator coils which boosts the rotor on its way instead of dragging it backwards. Robert also rectifies the back EMF pulse and feeds it back to the drive battery. And so far, this is a very efficient system. Robert's diagram does not show when the generator coils are best switched on and off, though he does indicate angles on his drawing. A builder from one of the forums found the optimum switching with his arrangement was a switch on of the output power at 42 degrees and a switch off of the output power at 44.7 degrees. And that tiny 2.7 degree part of the rotor turn gave him an input of 27.6 watts and an output of 33.78 kilowatts, which is a COP of 1,223. Now, it's suggested that a good length for the generator coils is shown when your particular rotor magnet just starts to lift one end of a 32 millimeter paper clip off the table as you bring the magnet down towards the paper clip. Just as it starts to rise, that is the optimum length for a coil. It's often suggested that a coil should be 1.5 times the width of its length. Now, that is a good size for a coil, and it's the sort of size that John Bedini likes. But if you take a look at the drawing that Robert does, his coils are roughly square. They're certainly not much wider than they are long. So it's up to you if you wish to experiment and find out which is the most effective. Now, after you've got the rotor operation optimized using continuous battery power, that is, after moving the generator coils on their disk to find the very best performance position and finding the best timing of the output switch, then Robert preferred to provide, I should say, the power into the motor generator, with a switching arrangement that provides about 25% of the time powered up and 75% of the time not powered up. And the way he does it is he has a disc attached to the rotor shaft. The disc goes round with the rotor, and he has an electrical brush contact which can be moved up and down along a slot, and another fixed electrical brush contact on the central part. And the further you move this down the arm here, the greater the length of insulating disc that has to be traversed by this contact, before it makes contact again. So it is a mechanical way of switching the power through to the motor generator. Now, this looks crude, but it isn't nearly as crude as it looks. This switching arrangement has the advantage that it is bidirectional. The current can flow through it in either direction. Now, what you do is you are connecting your drive battery through this switch contact, through the two drive electromagnet coils. Now, you need to be careful with the way that the direction that the coils are wound, because they are wound in the way that looks the same to the rotor, but looks the reverse direction to a human. Now, the thing is, when this contact comes off, the back EMF is fed back along the wires through to this diode. The minus gets winched up above the plus connection, and that charges up this relatively small capacitor here, and it feeds the pulse power that went to these drive electromagnets for the rotor, back to the battery. This is a very effective motor generator indeed, provided you understand how it operates. If you don't understand how it operates, you will make a terrible mess of trying to replicate it. But this is the full circuit. You have an AC output which comes from the generator output coils, which are connected in series to raise the voltage and go through the cutout switch for the on-off operation of the output. You have the DC input coming through a switching arrangement through to the two drive coils. And that is the sum total of the entire motor generator. Now this is a remarkably effective motor generator. It's quite small and it can have a major power output. But again, let me stress that this is powered by the universal energy field flowing through permanent magnets. It's very cleverly designed and built, very sensible. Now, Robert says you need to be aware of the following things. Use only pure iron for the cores of the drive and the generator coils. Secondly, wind the generator coils with a resistance in the range of 10 to 20 ohms for a small model. He says then use a voltage between 12 volts and 36 volts for a small model. For a small machine, make the contactor star disc a 1-inch maximum diameter. Keep the wiring short and of a low resistance. For a small machine, use a fuse of 100 milliamps to 1 amp. Install a switch for convenience and safety. Use small bearings. Do not use seal bearings due to their grease drag. A word extra on that, and that is that experimenters have found that if they grip the inner part of a greased up sealed bearing and spin it rapidly with a power drill for a few minutes, the grease melts and moves away and you get a sealed greased drive which is very low resistance to turning. And those could be used if you want to do that. Robert also says use only silver contacts for the pot switching. If using powerful magnets, vibration becomes a problem. The air gap is not critical, but reducing it increases both torque and input power in proportion. For higher voltage and lower current, connect the generator coils in series. If the drive coil windings are low resistance and the input voltage is high, then it's advisable to use transistor switching to eliminate sparking. Tuning the points is vitally important unless you're using transistor switching. Use ferrite magnets for all input voltages below 120 volts. If constructing a large model involving large superpower magnets, then greater power is needed to drive the machine. The greater the torque, the greater the vibration, the greater the copper content. Please remember, though, that any wiring that you use needs to be able to carry the current that you're using. It needs to carry the current without overheating. Here's a table of some cable capacities, and the amps that the wires can carry are shown here in red. These are the American wire gauge references. These are the British standard wire gauge references. These are the diameters of the wire in millimeters and the cross-sectional areas if it interests you. It also lets you know the resistance per meter and how great a length of wire you get on a half kilogram coil of wire, spool of wire that you buy. To summarize then, a properly built Adams motor is a small desktop device which pulls in a great deal of excess energy from the universal energy field, energy which can power a household, provide heating, cooling, smoke-free cooking, lighting, clean water, and power for computers, mobile phones, e-readers, MP3 players, and so on.
I need to interrupt. Sorry, Patrick. Yeah, you have a very captive audience here. I had a phone call commenting that if you would just please pause a little before you go on to the next device, because
this is the last one.
Yeah, because they get confused. So if you say the next device is coming up or something like that, then they know it's not the same device that you're talking about.
Yes,
thank you.
Okay. Well, we're just finished.
Yeah.
There are just 2 sentences left. It's important to understand the reality of the universe. There's no such thing as gravity. What we call the force of gravity does not pull, it pushes. And it is in reality just a slight imbalance in the zero-point energy field, which acts in all directions. The imbalance is caused by a large volume of matter absorbing some of the zero-point energy field which passes through it. The larger the mass of the matter, the greater the imbalance, or so-called gravity. Moving on to another device, which is an electrostatic machine designed by Paul Baumann of Switzerland. It's a self-powered 3 kilowatt output generator which uses the electrostatic output of a Wimshurst machine as its source of power. The important to note about this is that these strips here, there's one on the front and one on the disc at the back, they actually collect charge and they cause the disc to rotate. So this is a self-powered device that produces a continuous source of electrostatic power. That arrangement was invented by this guy here called Poggendorf, Joe Poggendorf, who looks a rather serious guy. The rotation is roughly once a second, or 60 per minute, 60 RPM. In 1991, Don Kelly stated that the Swiss ML converter, which is this machine, is a fully symmetrical, influence type energy converter which is based on the Wimshurst electrostatic generator with its twin counter-rotating discs, where metallic foil sectors generate and carry small charges of electricity to be stored in matching capacitors. In Wimshurst units, diagonal utilizing brushes on each opposite disc distribute the correct charges to the sectors as they revolve, but in the ML converter, this is carried out by a crystal diode. After you start the thing by hand, it continues to rotate on its own. Now, it's important to understand that this, again, is a product of the universal energy field, as is sunlight. Sunlight is not produced by nuclear fusion of hydrogen into helium in the sun. That is bunkum. The reality is that the energy coming from the sun is caused by the 0-point energy field, which is the universal energy field. And so we can use an aerial to access that energy. It's just another of the many ways that you can access universal energy. A great deal of what you were taught in school is either wrong or only partially right. For example, it's claimed that according to Archimedes, a body will only float if it displaces its own weight of liquid. My science teacher in school demonstrated that that's not correct. He floated a brass cylinder in mercury, where the weight of mercury was less than the weight of the brass cylinder. For that, he used a glass container, which was only just larger than the brass cylinder. So it floated in very little mercury. Now, a German called Hermann Clausen presents a great deal of practical information in his 1925 patent, which is US 1540998, Conversion of Atmospheric Electric Energy. Hermann describes a system which outputs 100 kilowatts of output power as a small system. For a system of that size will almost certainly have many aerials providing the input. He says the static electricity which runs to Earth through an aerial in the form of direct current of very high voltage and low current strength is converted into electrodynamic energy in the form of high-frequency vibrations. He demonstrates this using a simple method, and he shows it in figure 1 here. He uses an electrostatic device with electrostatic collecting brushes, in other words, a Wimshurst machine, rather than an aerial, because he wants to keep it simple for this discussion. And he uses the output from the Wimshurst machine to create a spark between these spark gaps here, 7 and 8. And the spark gaps are connected through blocking capacitors so that this coil doesn't short circuit the spark gap, but the capacitors can pass through the voltage pulse that happens when the spark occurs. they pass through this, which is the primary of a large step-down transformer. Now that is a neat way of producing practical energy from an aerial system. In 1925, there will have been very few aircraft. Remember, the first heavier-than-air aircraft didn't take off until 1903, which is only 22 years before this patent. And in those 22 years, there will have been very few heavier-than-air aircraft flying around. Because of that, tall aerials wouldn't have been considered a hazard. And it's pretty clear that Herman had tall aerials in his installations. But anyway, he goes ahead to describe how you use an aerial to provide useful output power. The first thing he does is he adds a triple capacitor slugged spark gap across his working spark gap. The idea being that if the current gets so high from something like a lightning strike, that these safety spark gaps will fire and keep your main spark gap safe, and keep safe your equipment here and all the equipment connected in an output. Now this is a very simple arrangement. It's the same as the wind source machine. The aerial provides electrostatic power. It would like to pass it through to the earth, and it would do it through the spark gap. When the spark gap fires, an electrical pulse runs round through these two blocking capacitors. They block the DC as this voltage builds up, through the primary of a step-down transformer. And that gives you AC pulses coming off this transformer, which are much lower voltage and much higher current. Now he says one of the best ways to deal with this arrangement of power is to use an electrostatic motor. Electrostatic motors are probably something new to you, but we'll discuss them in a moment. Because of the fact of the possibility of a direct lightning strike or a nearby lightning strike, you also have the opportunity and the sensible step of putting into the aerial before your entire equipment a choke, which is turns of wire, aerial wire, wrapped round a metallic transducer, if you like. He's showing a toroidal transformer here. That's fine. You can also use one that's linear. But this is the arrangement here. He's opted in this case for a dual spark gap, and he has got 4 safety spark gaps on the outside, and he's just driving an electrostatic motor because he says that's one of the easiest ways of getting the power away from an aerial system. Now, this is a 3D printer produced electrostatic motor, which you'll find on the web. I think there's a video of it there. This is a commercial unit also on the web, offered for sale. Those are electrostatic motors, and they will work well. But it's interesting to notice what Herman says about this. He says the positive atmospheric electric charge collected by the aerial tends to combine with the negative electricity connected to the system by the earth wire. It travels through the aerial and the choke, flowing in the same direction as the direct current. The motor M provides the capacitance, the inductance, and the resistance, which are necessary for converting static electricity into electromagnetic wave energy. So you will see on his diagrams, and he's got quite a number of them, you have the choke in the aerial, a nice large multiple gap safety spark gap. Then you have the working spark gap, which is isolated by the capacitors from the motor, and the motor is fed the voltage from the spark gaps. It can be done directly or it can be done through a transformer. This one here is suggesting that you do it through a transformer. This is the same way as using a Wimshurst machine. This particular variety, he's using a multiple spark gap. The central rotor here, 7, is rotated by a little motor, and it creates sparks as it goes round inside the outer aerial connected conductor. Now, figure 5 shows an arrangement for producing large currents. Another way of dealing with it is to use a device which is called a rheostat nowadays. It is a variable coil. And when I was young, we used a variable coil like that to tune a cat's whisker crystal radio set. A crystal radio set which you had to fiddle around with until the advent of germanium diodes were a great blessing. And then you adjusted the coil to tune the different radio stations. But you can do that also on this power system. You have the aerial, its choke, and its safety spark gap down here. Then you have the working spark gap going through part of the coil that's fed by the aerial. This particular coil has got 2 contacts on it, and the motor here is an electrostatic motor, and it's also fed to earth. And that's another effective way of dealing with this sort of circuitry. So there is a lot more information and much more advanced information in Herman's patent. It seems actually to be more of a tutorial based on extensive experience rather than a conventional patent. And he shows many ways of connecting aerials and doing very useful pieces of work with it. But this is, thankfully, from your point of view, the end of my presentation. So let me say thank you for listening, and let me pass you back to the moderator.
Well, thank you very much, Patrick. Once again, I'm blown over and overwhelmed again with your presentation. And the last 3 that you presented is some of the work that I've been working on and looking forward to returning. And I'm glad in many ways that I didn't quite get it set up because I didn't have the safety gap in there. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Patrick. Yes, you were awesome.
I'm trying to find out how to switch the screen off.
There should be a little
Stop share button.
pencil. Stop share button on there, yeah, bottom of your screen.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the stop share.
At the top, Crystal, I think, was saying, it's at the top. Just slide your mouse over to the top and it should show, pop up.
Okay.
The moderator can stop the sharing for the person also.
That's fine. Please do it, moderator.
See if I can stop sharing. I think Crystal has the full.
Okay.
Yeah, I have it, but I'm not done this. Okay.
I'll help you out. Just Crystal,
Yes,
just please press share screen button.
Okay.
And
I
it
will.
will switch to your one, and then just cancel your one because you know how to do it. That's the quickest way.
Just hold on a sec.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
Patrick, that was awesome. You were explaining a universal energy, how inventor of the past, have created.
Peter, hold on. Peter, you're made host now, Peter.
Okay, no problem. But it's done anyway.
Done,
Patrick is back on track. He's good on camera right now, not anymore with share screen.
Yeah, sorry, Koso. I also want to thank Patrick. I mean, this is so amazing. I mean, not only do you illustrate with diagrams, your writings, to make it more like a blueprint, you also explain in such details that people can almost go and start making their own now. But you did have a disclaimer earlier on in the last meeting. You were saying that they do it at their own risk, right?
Yes, that's primarily to stop people suing you.
Okay.
Really, And that's very well-known pastime in America.
Yeah.
Sure.
I want to thank you so much, Patrick.
You're more than welcome.
Yes, bringing the light of the universal energy field. Mr. Cash call it plasma, but the Chinese we call it ki or chi, in Cambodia called barame.
Yes.
And all the machine, like you said, even my Q6, Q24, is all to harness the universal energy field, and that's why they all can. But the hardest thing for me was giving it the input, because we knew we have to use a car battery to do it, but I don't have the knowledge of electricity, but I do have the knowledge of like this, see, the free energy I set up right here.
Right.
And you're amazing. You just explained a different perspective, a different inventive approach, accomplishing the same goal, but from different approach. That was awesome. Like even Mr. Cash, you know, magnetic gravitational coil. And I took his coil and put my capacitor on it. And then later I just did it without this thing. I just do it with, what's it called? Spiral. Using,
Yes, that's an Archimedean spiral. It's difficult to get things like that working. It's easier with a pyramid. The pyramid need only be 8 straight edges.
Yes.
But you have to line it right.
Absolutely.
Something like that is very much affected by you personally.
And then I did the cone inside it, and this one also have a spiral cone inside it too. Beside the spiral, it's only one wire.
Yes.
But I use ashes water for some reason to dip it into to simulate Mr. Cash nano coating.
Yes.
To exchange the electron positron.
Yes.
I don't know why the positron when I dip to ash water and I plug into the system, it began to replace the electron with positron, you know, antimatter, and it's cold to the touch. I thought, wait, the universal energy field, I didn't know it has the ability to create positron by replacing it doing the in the shape, in the nano coating around the wire and shape of the spiral and cone inside.
Yes.
But the amazing thing is I can lick it like this, and it don't kill me. Like,
no, it won't, because the frequency is too high.
Yes.
The frequency is much too high to harm you. That's a beneficial device. I've got Mr. Kesh's designs in my ebook as well, but the way he has discovered of doing it is a slightly tricky way. It works perfectly well. It's a good method, but it's hard to do.
How about mine? I took his I took his magnetic gravitational coil, which looked like this. My first version, you see, my friend Crystal and Frank, they all built a Q6 with the magnetic gravitational as the core. Yes. But I found out I can't put it in my book to share with people if I have the core. So I decided to use the cone and spiral to put it so I can put it into a book and share it, you know.
Yes,
that was the only way.
Yes,
I can confirm I've got the same with coil from Coil rather than from cones. I've got still the first project at home of Q6.
Yes.
Yes, those methods work very well, but they're hard to do. If you're skilled, you can certainly manage it.
Mm-hmm.
But I will mention the fact that a pyramid, if it's angled at the correct angle, and aligned correctly north-south, is going to access the same energy in a more simple fashion, and you get exactly the same result.
And how about the cone, the spiral cone? Is the same thing as the pyramid?
That will work, certainly, yes.
Yes.
There's a book that's available on my website which explains how shape affects things like that.
Patrick, isn't there a variation in pyramid angles as far as what you want to accomplish as far as frequencies? I noticed on that one it was 51 degrees, 51 minutes, 14 seconds or something like that. But in some pyramids, they're 52 degrees, 54 degrees, 57, various different ones for different things. As I understand, some for more metaphysical things, and some for what you would term power generation or power transfer.
Yes, I know people have experimented with different angles, certainly. The thing that impresses me very much is that there have been instances where dogs which have been old, lame, and nearly blind have been put under a pyramid for about 6 weeks and have been rejuvenated and cured totally
Wow.
by the
Wow.
pyramid.
That's
So
amazing.
if you have a sick dog, building a correctly orientated pyramid over its sleeping basket would be a worthwhile thing to do.
So
Mr.
Patrick, you're saying that if it works for dogs, it would work for humans as well, right?
Yes, yes.
Oh,
very
wow.
much so.
Like, wow. Mr. Patrick, why do my device can communicate like this one and this one? Is it because my chakra is open? That's why?
I don't know anything about chakras. I have to admit total ignorance. But
Okay.
what you're doing is you are creating an energy flow through your devices. The energy flow is the universal energy field, the 0-point energy field, or orgone if you prefer it, or whatever you like to call it. As you say, there are many names.
Yes.
Yes.
They call it Barame in Cambodian because the Cambodian people,
Yes.
they built the Angkor Wat temple and Bayon with the cone,
Yes.
and they
Yes.
absorbed Barame.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. That may be why the Indian teepee is so popular. But you're creating an energy flow with the one that you have on the floor, and you're creating an energy flow with the one that you have on the wooden unit. That one, yes.
Oh,
Now,
this
those
one?
energy flows will combine.
Oh, wow.
Because you have them close together.
Okay.
They will flow. You're creating quite a large energy field around both of those. So it's not just straight through the device, it's round it. As you will see in devices like Mr. Kesh has, when it's used in agriculture, it creates a large rounded field around the device that's producing the energy.
You mean like this one right here? I'm matching with some kind of voltmeter. So
You can't measure this energy because we don't have a meter for it.
like
Sorry.
this one? Okay.
No, there's only one person I know of who's got a meter for it, and that's Bob Boyce in America, and he won't share the design. He's given the design to Tom Thayer on the arrangement that Tom can only share it if he builds the units and sells them. But Tom's too lazy to do that. So there is a unit, but nobody knows how it works other than
How
Tom.
about Dan Winter?
Sorry?
Mr. Dan Winter. They say he's some kind of scientist of physics. He built technology that harnessed the universal energy field, a vortex something.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with him, sir? That man.
No, I'm not actually, but a vortex is certainly one way of concentrating the energy. This is why hurricanes are so dangerous. They generate a lot of energy. And you notice that the smallest point of the vortex is at the bottom in destructive energy devices going through places like Texas and so on.
Right, Koso, on that
Yes,
question
ma'am.
about Dan Winter,
Yes,
pose
ma'am.
that question again when Dr. Elizabeth Donovan speaking. Pose that question again because Elizabeth had been working with Dan Winter before.
Yes.
Yeah.
I heard he's the earlier pioneer of, just like Paul Palmer, Mr. Palmer. I don't know you. I read him from Mr. David Wilcock. That's what really opened me up to the 0-point energy. David Wilcock, he wrote all kind of stuff on different inventors, and Joe Sell, Mr. Joe Sell, but no one ever able to duplicate Mr. Joe Sell.
Yeah, Joe Sell is Joe Noble. Joe Noble and two other guys built the first Joe Cell in Australia, but they were following a patent by someone else. I've never been able to find the patent, but I know for a fact that they were working from a patent.
Patrick talked about the Joe Cell in the last presentation he made for the 42nd meeting. So if you go into the FESIG YouTube channel, you'll be able to find the 42nd FESIG meeting. Click on that and you get the details from Patrick then.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, that's good.
Thank you, Kosol. Kelsol, can I ask you to turn off your mic so we can let somebody else ask questions and we'll come back to you? Thank you. And somebody else have a question for Patrick?
Yes, actually, I've got it too. One, I've checked the link of the FESIG-free.pdf, and it's not active. There's no link for PDF2 and PDF1, which were before, and it's not on the freeenergyinfo.com/FESIG. I can't find it. So when it will be probably available, you know, online on the website, can we know it, Patrick?
It's certainly been transferred into that server, and it's been there ever since the video was produced. I'll check it later on this evening, and if you want, you can email me directly. My email's in the PDF file, but it's engpjk@gmail.com. And if you
Patrick,
want, I will email a copy to you directly.
Yes, it would be nice, because I'm on the website just now, and I checked .com and .co.uk with this free energy info and /FESIG free.pdf, and I can't find it. So either I'm doing something wrong, or you know, or the address which was passed on to us before, it's not working. So if you wouldn't mind to help us out with it, that would be appreciated.
Yes, I will transfer it right away.
Okay,
and it's also available on Patrick's site.
Yeah, that's where I went. First, that's where I went. Yes,
okay.
I went to the website, and I couldn't access it.
Our site is linked up to Patrick's site.
Mm-hmm. And the second question is with the aerial system, which you were talking about at the very end of the presentation.
Yes.
Is it the ion catching one, or it's a different matter of energy? With a sparkle gap, you remember?
Yes.
So that's the ion catching one, or different type of device?
No, they all are the same. There's only one energy field worth speaking of, and that's the universal energy field. You can gather it with an aerial, you can gather it with an electrostatic machine, you can gather it a string of different ways. But there's no difficulty in actually accessing the field itself.
Okay, so it's nothing to do with ions, yes? It's not. It's not electrostatic discharge, and it's not ions, which meant to be catch up.
Yeah, well, it is, I suppose, really. I wouldn't tend to be too technical about it. If you put up an air, you get energy through it. If you spin a Wimshurst machine, you get energy through it. If you pulse a coil, you get energy through it. There are so many different ways of accessing it. If you use a solar panel, you get it from the 0-point energy field, because the light that's falling on the solar panel is produced by the zero energy field. If you produce it from a gravity-powered device, you're still drawing energy from the universal energy field, because gravity is caused by the universal energy field. There isn't anything that I can think of off the cuff that isn't produced by the universal energy field.
Okay, makes sense, but it's old. Actually, the solar panels are the closed systems, so we're not looking into the closed systems, yes?
There's no such thing in the universe as a closed system.
Well, in your book, I've read that, you know, we're talking about closed systems, yes, and the systems which are taking energy out of the closed system as well, additional.
No, I'm afraid not. In my ebook, I state quite categorically, there is no such thing in the universe as a closed system.
Okay, so I need to read it again then.
Yep.
I misunderstood something.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
This is the point of the fishes in the beginning of the talk today. And we are sitting in the middle of all this energy. We pull out a little bit, just like the fishes take a little bit of oxygen out of the water, but they don't understand that they're in the water possible. We don't realize that we take in a little bit of energy from this field around us, but we don't see that how vast it is. Go ahead, next person. I have a question for Patrick. Let's see who Ron's not. James is away. We have Then let's see who else we got. Ulf. Ulf, are you still there, Ulf?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, oh, it's
You
time
know-
for you to come and give us a report of the free energy conference you've gone to.
And,
Yeah.
basically, I was going to ask see if you had a question for Patrick first.
Okay, that first. That
Yeah, I
first.
don't have any questions for Patrick at this time. I just appreciate all this time and energy and work he's put into his document. One thing I can share that I'm going to, in the chat box for everybody, I'm going to give you some links. Let's see here. And let's give you the conference program. Also going to give you links to the specific websites. Let me see here. Okay. Let's see. Did I go up?
We got about less than 10 minutes because we have to wrap up. It's coming to 2 hours now.
Yeah.
And we have yet to go around the table.
What do I do? And I put the text inside of the chat box and hit the return key, but nothing seems to happen.
We don't have chat today, I don't think, is the problem.
What do you mean you don't have chat? Oh yeah, I don't have it
believe
activated.
that.
Okay.
I don't see anything in the chat.
Yeah, I was trying to send it.
Just type on the chat.
I did. I copied it in, but then I hit the return key. No, there you go. There it is.
There it goes.
Did everybody see it?
Yes.
Yes, we did.
Okay, cool. So anyway, one of the guys might be interested also for Patrick. There's this link that is, it says chronological descriptions of energy apparatus. That's a guy that I met there. He's in Germany, in Berlin. And on that link there, it's the English translation there, but most of it is in German. He's chronologically put together all kinds of free energy and energy devices from historical times up until today. Similar maybe to what Patrick has done, but in a different output, but mostly in German, but also a lot of work put in there. Yeah, there was a couple of 2-3 different devices supposedly over Unity. The one that they came and should, just a few hours before these guys didn't show up. But I talked to another guy at the conference, and a friend of his has bought 2 of them and been to Croatia, where they developed these things. And one of these links you can click on, you will see the different devices and cost and how many kilowatts, etc. output. The other one was a magnetic motor that the guy was there with the thing, but again, there was one item missing for the machine. But they are also starting to sell these machines.
Oh, hang on. Sorry to interrupt you. I'll help you here, okay? If you just slow down a bit, I'm going to share screens a bit because I've copied and pasted on a Microsoft Word what you've written, so the audience could see what you're talking about, right?
Okay.
Just give me a moment. There you are. Yeah, go on then. Carry on, Ulf. Yeah,
so the first link, or the first thing, that's the PDF that tells you all the speakers and all the stuff that happened for the 3-day conference. The first one, the device, they're called IPP7. That's the one that these guys didn't show up. They were supposed to be there. But if you click on the link down below there, Innovatu EU, that shows the device and more stuff about it. And then there was the Magmo, and these guys were there, but they weren't able to demonstrate it. And they're basically selling these, starting to sell these now. And they're going to have one at 7.3 kilowatts, and then they're going to be 15 kilowatts. They're going to have 3 units, but right now I think there's the smaller one that they have there, which is 3 kilowatts, I think, or whatever. And then there was a guy there, he's also from Germany, from Berlin. He has got his website, desertgreening.com, and he showed some very amazing things he's done with Willem Reich, cloud-buster technology that he's developed himself. And so he was in Algeria, and it's on his website. You can see photos, but he had a film from there, and it's like, there was complete desert. A couple of days he got it to rain where it never rains, and now they're like having big business creating all kinds of fruits and vegetables and all kinds of stuff there. Are you talking about this link here? Yeah, that one. The other one is the Russian Autonomous Hydraulic Energy Radar. There was a talk about that. I couldn't find a link to a specific website on that yet, but there's a YouTube link which demonstrates that there's talk about this machine. And it seems to me having a lot of pressure, and it's like 3,000 bars and whatever, but that seems to be something that we'll be working to. Again, there was no way of talking about it, but some people are investing in it. And the last one there is the similar thing to what Patrick has done, but it's a German one. There's the English link there. We'll tell you a little bit about what he's done and how it's organized all this information. So that's also was pretty interesting. There was a lot of other things too, of course, frequency healing machines and all kinds of other stuff. But yeah, I think these were the most interesting things that I saw when I was over there.
All right, so viewers can see this and freeze frame it and copy down the links that you have put up for us on chat. But viewers can't get hold of the chat, so that's why this is necessary. And thank you so much all for the report. I stop share now.
Yeah.
Okay. Shall we terminate the?
Can I ask Mr. Patrick one question related to saving? Well, why does some device create a saving? So, Mr. Patrick, do you know anything about that? Like Mr. Cash said, his device will create saving, and that's what got all of us into his adventure. And even my Q, 2 years later now, people reporting to me that it creates saving. So do you have any knowledge why it does that? How does it work in relationship to the energy and saving?
I don't, in actual fact. Just before I get into that, let me say that the FESIG 3 document was already on the www.freeenergy.com website, and I've just now put it onto the .co.uk and the devices.com website. Okay, going back to the how does it reduce energy? It's said that electricity is detrimental generally, and it's been said that if you put a tar buster, which is a crystal pyramid style thing, underneath the meter that supplies electricity into your particular house or whatever, into your home, that it reduces the reading on the meter very considerably, because the electricity is cleaned up going into your home and you don't actually use as much. I know that one guy who said he buried tar buster underneath his meter. After a few weeks, the people from the electricity company came out to change his meter because they thought it was defective. And the new meter did exactly the same thing as before. But I don't know exactly how or why an orgone device would reduce electricity usage, but it appears that it does.
Maybe I can just cut in a little bit. There was a representative from Keshe also there, and I have friends that actually built some Keshe devices, and I fooled around with myself as well. According to Keshe, it's when you do this special coating that you do on these copper wires, he's claiming that they become superconductive, etc. So when you plug that into the house, so it's not a Reich machine, which is like a Keshe device, then over time, supposedly it kind of starts coating, doing the same kind of coating through the electrical wires of the house. And it could take up to 2 to 3 months. And in the end of that, they're claiming that you can get something like 30% energy savings. This is my understanding anyway.
Okay, thank you.
So Mr. Cash device is like an organ. Even my device considered to be like an organ in a way.
Oh, it is definitely using the orgone energy. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Patrick. That was very illuminating and awful. Sorry, I say your name wrong.
No problem.
Okay.
I've got a
Thank
question.
you.
Thank you.
Okay,
I have a question about the pyramid. Now, I have a degree in horticulture, and they never taught us anything about that. and it's curious because that material looks very dated. So I guess it's probably the same cover up on the pyramid technology as well. But Patrick, can you comment about a dome shape as compared to a pyramid? Would it also create the same effects as drawing out the water from the ground and so on, or does it have to be pyramid? What are your thoughts?
No, it doesn't have to be a pyramid, but a dome wouldn't do it. You needed to go up to a point, and whereas you can use a cone shape and a pyramid shape, and possibly one or two other shapes as well, but ideally I think you should have a point at the top. The idea is that the energy flows in at the base and up the sides, mainly up the sides, somewhat through the center, but generally up the edges, and exits vertically upwards from the peak of the thing itself. And there is a drawing in then of energy through the center of the device itself. You get a strong energy flow, and it is very beneficial. I don't know about them deliberately suppressing it. It's quite possible that they have just ignored it rather than anything else.
You would think a lot of on that, Pat, would try to build greenhouses like that.
Sorry?
Well, more greenhouse companies should try to build greenhouses like in the shape of a pyramid.
Well, I was talking a while back to the people who worked with John Searle, and they have developed a horticultural or agricultural box which can be built up vertically so that you can get a much taller growth area on a place. And I tried my level best to persuade them to provide an optional extra in a wire frame that was in the shape of a pyramid that could go on the top box. But I couldn't persuade them no matter what I said.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Patrick, I want to follow up on James's comment. On the pyramids shape for the greenhouses, is the top of it opened to allow water vapor to leave, or is this recycled? Is it just a capped up the top?
It's normally closed. You have the option of an open pyramid or a closed pyramid. With an open pyramid, for instance, they've tested it in an ordinary garden. If you put food in the middle of the pyramid so that ants are attracted to the food, the ants come into the pyramid area and then they walk around in a curved circle and go out and never reach the food. But that's an open pyramid, which is perfectly possible. A closed pyramid is the more usual, and nothing exits in the way of humidity from the top of it.
Interesting. Well, thank you. That was I need that clarification. I'm also in the horticultural industry, also with greenhouses of standard, and most of the time they're constructed long and narrow in hoop stages, simply because it makes it easier to produce more crops per acre. But,
right.
That's what they say. That's what they say. But when they're growing 4 times as large, it makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm. I don't mean to cut you guys short. The meeting is coming to an end now because it's going to hit the 2-hour mark. So I have to wrap it up. Right, Fres, I'm taking back the microphone.
Right ahead.
Wrap up
Thank
the
you.
meeting. I guess we have. I got to skip the going round the table because everybody had their say. Unless Avin, you want to say something before we close the meeting? Everybody had their say except Daniel and Avin. Daniel, if you want to speak up, this is your chance. Avin, I guess Daniel can't speak because his microphone's not working.
No, thank you. Everything is fine. Thank you so much,
thank you,
Patrick.
I try to do off the grid. Just I want to make that known.
Yeah, thanks, Gosel. Thank you for coming and sharing your thoughts about the Q6 and the Q24 that you built with us. Right. Anyway, so there being no other business, folks, this meeting is now adjourned to the 45th meeting, which will be held on the 18th of October, where Dr. Elizabeth Donovan will be presenting the paper on politics and energy, implementation of alternative energy technologies. Another exciting talk on the way. Hey folks, thank you so much for attending this meeting, all 11 of us, 11 of 12 of us, and thank you, Patrick, for delivering such a very detailed explanation of the energy devices, the free energy devices. Yeah, much appreciated. Thank you so much all. Namaste.